All right, welcome everybody. It's a Commander's Film Room Tuesday. You know what that means. Mark Bullock and Nick Akridge join us to break down all the film that they can find on whoever it is that we're looking for. And George and I try to not look stupid and pummel them with questions along the way.
Absolutely.
That's
Great
right.
formula.
It has worked very well so far, so we won't change it up yet. Today we get to Jayden Daniels, who is, I think, maybe the outside of JJ McCarthy, maybe the fastest climber on boards that we've seen. I personally have been on record saying for a couple of months, if any of these guys found their way to one, I think it would be him. Not saying he finds his way to one, but I just think there will be some teams that will find what he adds in the run game to be enough to tempt somebody to do it. The we'll get to this at some point. The argument always is what took so long. So let's start with what we found out good. Nick, I think you're going to start us off here.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to love about his tape. There's a reason he's rising up boards. I mean, like you said, him as just purely a runner is instantly one of the best athletes on any field he steps on. I mean, 6'4" should not move as effortlessly as it does for him. And then when you just add on the kind of like the steps he's taken as a passer is definitely why he is some people's QB1. I don't know if I'm going to go that far, but there's definitely a lot to really like about him. So this first play was from 2022, the conference championship game against Georgia. I just want to kind of pull this up. It's a simple little clip. It's looks to they motion the slot tight end receiver over here, and it's kind of like a little pivot concept where you've got that outside receiver running kind of a shallow post, and that slot guy sort of running a pivot route out there, and it just kind of shows his anticipation. And it wasn't a 1 year sort of thing. Like there were these sort of plays that were there last year, and I love looking at the end zone view of these and kind of seeing where he starts his throwing motion. And
Nick, did you pick film against Georgia specifically? Are you gonna do this to me all day long? Or no?
Yeah, because last year when they played Tennessee, I think Tennessee whooped them, so couldn't pull anything from there.
Naturally,
but no, it's just a great clip to kind of show how he processes this information, and when he's look, he's already triggered the ball here, and you've got the receiver not even the ball's supposed to go here. And the right receivers here. So it's just the type of anticipation you want to see. And one of the things that I kind of knocked him for was, that consistent anticipation. But there are definitely some throws out there that shows that he can do it, which is kind of the most important thing here. So, yeah, I mean, just kind of looking at it, you see them rotate from too high into their single high. So, again, this whole game, he was kind of catching low balls like this from the center.
Yeah, that snap.
You see kind of that rotation here with this slot corner going to the flat, and you see the other one bailing to a deep third. So you kind of know exactly what sort of window you'll have, and don't hesitate. Get to the top of your drop and fire into that window, and it's a perfect ball.
Nick, one of the other big knocks we'll see as we go through the draft season here is his size. People will say, yeah, he's 6'2", he's 6'3", but he's only 210, and he puts himself in precarious positions. And certainly the fan base in Washington will have visions of Robert's knee flapping around in the wind and be very scared. It's not exactly like that, though, right?
No, I mean, I think there are some very, fair comparisons to RG3 in terms of the style of runner. He kind of looks like a track star when he runs. Every time I see him run, I just am reminding myself of the RG3 run against the Vikings, where he's just sprinting down the sideline and no one's got a chance to catch him. That's just kind of how every Jayden Daniels run looks. And he's a fantastic deep ball thrower, just like Rob was. So I think those sort of comparisons are good there. And
he's not a Lamar runner either, right? He does not have the same kind of wiggle that Lamar does.
No, but it's an effortless sort of glide, if that makes sense. I don't really know how to describe it, but yeah, he definitely puts himself in some very, very rough situations. I mean, there are plenty of clips out there where you see him getting absolutely killed. And yeah, he does get back up every single time, but it's not really where you want to live as a quarterback, especially with his sort of size. But going forward here, so this is from this past year against Mississippi State. They run a sail concept here, and this was the kind of thing that I was talking about before, where he wasn't as consistent with how he was anticipating throws. And, when you see him do it, you kind of want to see him constantly do it over and over again, and there shouldn't be a real reason to kind of hesitate. So, like I said, ball's middle of the field here. They've got a sail concept, and you kind of get exactly what you want. You've got the defense rotating to a cover 3 look. He's looking at it the whole time. Right here, I'd be looking for him to throw this out route here, or this sort of corner route. Now, you can make the case that it's a very tough throw, and it absolutely is. This curl flat guy's kind of here, but I've seen him hit these throws before. So you want him to kind of consistently do that. He sort of pumps it, takes off to run, and he makes a great play. I mean, again, he's a great athlete, so when he takes off to run, usually good things happen. Gets out of bounds there, but again, you've seen him make this sort of throw here. You kind of have what you want. You can see him make this kind of throw. The go is taking this deep third player. You've got this under route that's sort of holding the curl flat, so rip this throw and make it. I mean, it's
Nick, where's he supposed to be going with the ball here? The 50 or the guy towards the
I'm looking for right there.
Okay. It's not right the guy down at the 40 getting ready.
No, but I mean, again, he could also kind of take that. I believe it's
there, right?
I believe it's first down or second down here. Yeah, so you can absolutely take that underneath route. And again, taking those sort of checkdowns in the NFL are a good thing. You don't limit yourself to these hits, but you get to the top of the drop here, and I'd kind of like to see him kind of throw this thing right here into that little hole there. And
and then on top of that, Nick, part of the critiques for Jayden Daniels is that like he may not read in the pocket well or stay in the pocket very well. It seems like the pocket's he's protected pretty well in this spot right here, right? I feel like he has some time. It seems like he could release the ball, in my opinion, right? Or are you seeing the same thing, or what are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, it's only a 3-man rush here, but yet the LSU offensive line was fine. I mean, he had plenty of clean pockets out there for him to kind of work with. So the pressure wasn't really a problem. It's just sometimes he, for whatever reason, didn't rip it when I thought he could. Again, you can make the argument that this is a nice safe play where you don't want to risk that throw. But looking at this next play, the very next week, they have a sail concept again, exact same concept here. This is a little bit of an easier read and throw just because of how this kind of corner route takes. This curl flat defender right here. But again, you've seen him make this throw, and this is from the far hash here, which was different than that last clip. This is a college far hash, which is 10 times harder than an NFL far hash. So again, gets to this top of his drop and just rips that corner route right on time and right where he needs to be. Again, it's a bit of an easier read once this curl flat defender kind of redirects this route and sort of sinks back a little bit. He's not getting underneath it as much. But again, it's just sort of the consistency for me where it is nice to see that, 1 week later, he takes his exact same shot and hits it this time.
Hey, Mark, real quick, I'm curious your thoughts on this. A lot of people watch the tape and we're watching for concept and how quarterbacks read him and get to him. One of the odd knocks against Daniels this year is he played with a ton of talent. And that should be elevating his production just because of the fact that he has got 2 first-round receivers. I'm curious, as you're watching it, like how do you blend the two of watching the tape, taking out all those other things, and getting to production of what the quarterback actually is?
Yeah, for me, I actually think quarterback's one of the easier ones to kind of isolate because the read is either the right read or the wrong read. It doesn't matter if the receiver is, if it's Julio Jones on the outside or if it's me on the outside. If I'm running the right route and I'm open, it's the right read to throw it there, right? Yeah. So, yes, having talent is going to help because those guys are going to get open more consistently. But if he's making the correct read and the ball placement is good and he's consistently making the right decisions, then the talent is just a nice bonus on top of that. And you'll see that in plenty of clips where he'll throw to one of those top receivers and they'll go and make 3 guys miss and turn a 30-yard pass into a 60-yard touchdown. And that's fantastic for LSU, and that's a great clip for the receiver. But it doesn't mean that the throw was the wrong one from Daniels, right? Daniels shouldn't be marked down because the receiver made a great play after the catch. If the receiver had a chance to make that play because Daniels made the correct read and got the ball to the right place, then I wouldn't be marking him down for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that you can point to with, sort of box score stats, like maybe his production was down, and that's when you can kind of point to lack of help anywhere else. But once you kind of look into the film and where he's going with the ball, it doesn't really matter who he's throwing to. All right, so next up, if I remember correctly, so Texas A&M here. This is it's a 4th down, 4th and 5, I think here. And this is just kind of one of those examples of, just taking the easy throw, taking the easy play, taking what's given to him. And, it turns out to be a much better than play than what the easy play should have been. But it's one of those things that, kind of in the NFL that, you're going to have to take. Just take the simple ones. I mean, we see it all the time with some of the best quarterbacks is just dump the ball off and live to fight another day. And again, I mean, so here you have kind of a pressure look from Texas A&M. They kind of did that the whole game. You've got 2 slants here in the slot, and you kind of have exactly what you want with this number 2 receiver here, winning on this slant. And he kind of looks at him and decides not to throw it. And, if he kind of throws it right here, that's wide open. He take that quick slant. That's plenty of room for him on target. That guy can run for quite a bit, escapes the pocket and runs for 50 yards. So, I mean, it's one of those things where, yeah, you'd want him to anticipate that a little bit better and get that ball out, but at the same time, you're like, okay, that's fine. You just ran for 50 yards. So it's kind of something that he's going to have to sort of live with or sort of learn in the NFL. Again, he kind of gets to the top here. He's got this first one open. You can throw it there. Got that second one open. You can throw it there. Doesn't. It takes off to run for 50 yards. It's not typically where I'd like to have my quarterback kind of live like this, taking those sorts of hits here towards the sideline. But
it's these runs, Nick, which is why he's flying up boards, right? I mean,
exactly. Because again, so in my opinion, running quarterbacks kind of elevate their floor. They have a higher floor than some of these other guys that aren't athletic. Because again, you can be wrong here. You can miss what you're supposed to hit here, which is either of these 2 slants on 4th down, and then go scramble for 50 yards. And you're seen as a legend. So it elevates his floor, and it's something where, like, kind of Justin Fields has with Chicago, where, maybe as a passer, he's not as far along as what they've wanted, but he's already one of the best running quarterbacks in the NFL, and it just elevates his floor that much. So it's why you kind of fall in love with these sort of players.
So, Mark, I saw you kind of smile and giggle seeing Jayden Daniels take off for 50 yards. How do you feel about this? Do you feel like this is an appealing trait, or do you feel like this is a missed opportunity from Jayden Daniels? How do you feel about this?
Well, I was laughing because I've got a clip of or a little section of my clips later on with about 5 more examples of this exact thing.
Okay.
So it's definitely a thing. And yeah, ideally, as Nick say, you would like to see him throw one of those routes and let the receiver do the work. The benefit is, of course, if the reads are not quite that easy, and in the NFL they probably won't always be that easy, then he has that kind of get out of jail card that he can just play at any given moment. And because of his speed, he can. That get out of jail card can often turn into a 50-yard run, and it's ridiculous. So it's something that I think certainly early in his career you're gonna have to. The team drafting him is gonna have to be very comfortable with just saying we're gonna live with this, because the upside of his ability to run is far greater than if he misses a few throws that are open here and there. So I think you do kind of just have to accept that he is going to miss a few, and that he can make up for it by the explosive plays that he can create with his legs.
Yeah, and kind of going from that, this is what happens when he can't get out of the pocket, and that's kind of what has led to his sort of high pressure to sack numbers, which is, as we kind of know from last year, is a big concern for young quarterbacks. So
Nick, real quick before you do that, because I think it's important to not gloss over this. As I understand it, that pressure to sack ratio is one of the most transferable things from college to the pros. People hate to hear it, but that number specifically extremely important for those that care about numbers. Right?
Yeah, I mean, because you just kind of have to think about it. If you're in college and you're struggling to kind of get through your reads and then get out of the pocket if you have to, it's only 10 times quicker in the NFL. So that sort of number is going to kind of stick with you, and that's why it's been one of the most translatable stats. And it's why some guys who just look at that number and just say, no, I'm good, I don't want that. But for me, again, it's tough for me to just look at that one number and throw it out completely, but there's definitely some concern there. And I think that's kind of be one of his biggest concerns. And I think it comes down to that same thing that we were talking about, where you just want him to anticipate things consistently quicker. He shows that he can do it, and he just has to do it more often. So here against Missouri, the play is essentially 4 verts, where all these guys kind of have options to sit it down against, off coverage. But, Missouri's running a 2 deep look. They're pretty heavy quarters team here. And they end up kind of bracketing these 2 inside receivers. So you've got one here. These guys are going to bracket this receiver. He's going to stay underneath him. He's going to stay over the top. And then you have here towards the other side, you've got him in on this guy and then out on that one. So they're bracketing those 2 receivers. And, you'll see once he kind of gets to the top of his drop here that this receiver right here is going to have a step on both those guys. And it's one play that he can actually let it rip. And so gets to the top of his drop here. And, you see this receiver's even. And for me, I'd like to see him just kind of chuck that. I mean, again, it's 4 verts, so it's going to be deep, concepts there. And he's got an opportunity to easily throw this. And again, he's shown time and time again that he can throw this ball 50 yards down the field on a dime. I mean, he's one of the best deep ball throwers in college. He doesn't like it, sort of hesitates, and then takes a sack. And again, it's a 1st and 10 play. And sacks on first down are just killers. So if you don't like this, if you don't like it right here, then if I'm him, I want him to take off running, because the more you kind of sit in this pocket and sort of hesitate a little bit, then try to step up, that's when you kind of get yourself in a bad spot.
Is that Robinson on the end there?
I believe so.
Yeah, he's a monster.
Yep, but this is one of those ones that goes down to the quarterback's fault, not really, the offensive lineman or a pass rusher, really, because this is a perfect pocket he's got here.
Yeah, he even got the double team over. Yeah.
Yep, and then he just runs right into a sack. So it's one of those ones where, again, like even at this point, he's kind of already hesitated and he's still kind of sitting here. Now you can take off. He's got the athletic ability to absolutely beat a defensive tackle to the edge here, but for some reason he just wants to step up and takes a killer sack on first down.
I wonder how much of the time these guys that have the legs try to convince themselves, hang in here a little bit longer because people want to see me rip the ball, and then all of a sudden it's impossible to rip the ball. Where your point, Nick, if he just bails there, he's got so much grasp. You know what I mean? Like, I worry that these guys get coached so much, like, don't run from the pocket.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, in college, a lot of times they want them to run because, again, these college quarterbacks are 10 times better than most athletes on the field. But for Daniels, maybe that is the case. But for me, I just kind of think that he doesn't really trust himself as much as he really should, because, again, he's got throws all over his tape that are, perfect anticipatory throws. But for whatever reason, he just doesn't do it all the time. And you kind of lead to these sort of moments in the pocket where he does kind of sense pressure when it's not really there at times. And that's kind of leads me into this next clip again. Texas A&M.
Go ahead.
No, you can go.
I'll just say, yeah, obviously you kind of parsed through the video clips so far and you have a good feel for him. What's your level of concern about that? What's your level of concern about him reading the pocket and being able to diagnose? Like, are you worried about that, or do you think it's coachable? Do you see progression over the year, or what are your thoughts?
So this last year, in terms of just looking at straight up pressure to sack number, it was a lot better than it was the year before that.
Okay.
But over the past 4 or 5 years that he's been in college, it's been consistently high.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not something that he's been able to shake from the start. And that's my biggest concern, and it's why I'm a bit lower on him than Williams or Drake May. I think that sack number is tough to really shake.
Gotcha.
And again, there's clips just like this one, and I don't have the play drawn out here, but you have a pressure look, and you're going to have to be quick. You got to get the ball out, and he's kind of has these weird moments in the pocket where he just kind of freaks out a little bit, gets his eyes down, and it leads to some sort of inaccurate moments. He's got a tendency to kind of fall off throws a little bit. He kind of just likes to step back a little bit as he throws it and chuck it up, and it leads to some inaccurate moments. But, here you would just kind of like him to feel this pressure, which he does. But right here, don't really kind of take your eyes down. Keep both hands on the ball, just kind of sort of drift in the pocket normally. Get your eyes back up, and it was another sail concept, which LSU seemingly ran every single play. But yeah, just kind of right here in this moment, you don't really need to panic like this in the pocket. I mean, I know he knows it's a pressure look, but just kind of keep your eyes up, drift a little bit in that pocket and hit that throw. And once he's got this guy coming, he's a little flat with it and falls off a bit of the throw, which is understandable when you've got a linebacker breathing down your neck and just kind of a wild miss there.
So Mark and Nick, real quick, I know all the clips we've seen so far has been Jayden Daniels simply just dropping back like a 3-step drop, 5-step drop, whatever it is. Did they utilize him in more like in motion and more like in rollouts, kind of like making things easier for him, or to kind of make it more of like a option to run, just kind of makes things simpler for him, or you didn't really catch that as a trait of the LSU offense?
No, they trusted him. I mean, they trusted him to make full kind of field reads. There was a lot of plays that, can see him going from one side of the field to the other consistently.
I mean, more like bootlegs, Dick. Do you see any bootlegs as part of their offense?
Okay. I mean, there's obviously a touch, but I wouldn't say it's a huge thing that they would do. But yeah, I mean, they obviously do it a ton, and he's shown he can, kind of throw on the run and whatnot. But they were, a pretty, decently sort of normal offense in the terms of just kind of letting him read the whole field.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Yeah, so those are all the clips I have. I know Mark's got a ton more.
So before Mark starts, Nick, you've got it Williams, May, Daniels at this point of the offseason. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's going to change. I mean, for me, combine and pro day stuff doesn't really do anything for me. I don't really see that changing as much, and that's just kind of how I have it. But I think all three guys, there are fantastic traits that can take all of them to the next level and be franchise guys. It's just kind of more of pick your flavor. I mean, for me, at 2, I'd be happy with any of the 3.
What's the gap between 1 and 2 and 2 and 3 for you?
For me, there's not much of a gap between 1 and 2. I think May is closer to Williams than Daniels is to May, but that's just me, and that's just kind of, again, it kind of comes down to what you really prefer out of your quarterback.
Gotcha. Mark, you ready?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Cool.
Yeah, you ready to go? Let's see
it. Right. Okay. So, I've got a lot of stuff that Nick was talking about. I've got a lot of clips, so I'm just going to let these sort of run. But I thought I'd just start off with, as Nick talked about, he's an amazing deep ball thrower. And so I thought I'd show off some of those deep balls because they're just fun to watch, These are all slot fades, something LSU and Daniels in particular kind of majored in, where you get that slot receiver, you get the outside guy kind of holding this outside corner so that you give this whole wide space for the slot receiver to fade into, and that gives Daniels a lot of margin for error, but he rarely needs that margin for error because he usually is pretty on point with where he's putting that ball. As you'll see in these clips, they're just great throws, hitting guys in stride, and they're from all over the field. They're from far hashes, near hashes, close to the red zone, backed up, as we just saw a minute ago, from their own side of the field. There are all sorts of different distances, and on each one of them you see just how nicely he layers those throws and then the kind of touch that he puts on those throws. And you rarely see those receivers breaking stride. You see them always catching the ball right on the end of their fingertips, right out in front of them, and it's really fantastic stuff. And again, this one's just a short one close to the end zone, but it doesn't matter where he is really. Change the distance and the angle, it's still great touch and a great deep ball. So that was what I wanted to highlight with those. That little portion was just kind of building on what Nick said, that he is a fantastic deep ball thrower and he's really capable of some real good deep throws. And a lot of people call him the best deep ball thrower in the class. I probably wouldn't put him above Caleb Williams, but I would put him not far off. And that is certainly a very, very high bar. So he's great with the deep ball. Then
Mark, the other question before you do this is, and you may be getting to here, but another thing I hear all the time in the modern NFL is, how are they able to attack the middle of the field the more and more we rely on that in the passing game. We've seen
Yep.
a lot of the outside stuff in the deep ball. I'm assuming we're going to get to the middle of the field still.
Yeah, we absolutely are. I'm just going to look at kind of build on what Nick said, where his ability to read the field, and then we'll get to the middle of the field. So I definitely will touch on that. So first, we'll start with more of the examples of him being able to read the field. And you see here, you've got a little switch release where you've got the outside receiver running a go. You've got kind of a basic cross from this receiver, and then you've got a shallow cross from the backside. And he's going to work through this progression really quickly, and it's against Alabama, good defense, really well-trained defense, and you're going to see him work through the progression really quickly. He works to his left. He's reading this switch release, and he's kind of reading both guys at the same time. But from this point, you can obviously see he's got this guy on top of this outside route, so he's more working to the inside guy. But he doesn't like that look, so he comes back across the middle, and he spots his shallow cross from the far side, clearing this underneath linebacker. He hits it, and then we've got all this room to run after the catch, and that's where we talked about with the talent is where they can go after the catch. But before the catch, the process is really good. Again, you see him looking to the left here. He's reading those two receivers as we talked about. Doesn't like either one, so he comes back across the middle. He sees that he can't find this shallow cross right away because we've got this linebacker here. So he shows some good patience and waits for this receiver to clear that linebacker, and then he throws it into this second window. And again, as Nick said, the anticipation a little bit where he's throwing it before he clears the guy and puts it in stride, and you pick up some nice yards after the catch. Another example here where you've got, let me bring this back a little bit. This one was even more of a progression. So we saw them kind of go 1A, 2 there. This one, you've got a corner and a flat route, and then you've got a kind of dagger concept on the backside where you've got a receiver going up the middle of the field, trying to clear out any safety and open up the middle of the field for this dig route. And so he kind of goes 1-2 with this, checks 3 here, and comes all the way back to 4. So again, this is just to prove that he is fully capable of making full field reads. And you see, he just checked off this one, didn't really like it. He's now looking to the corner route, but this corner on the outside is playing with heavy outside leverage, so he knows that's kind of dead. So he immediately, we'll show the end zone angle in a minute, but you can see he's coming back to the middle of the field. And I think he probably wants this. The ref kind of plays as an extra defender in that throwing window.
Hate college for that.
Yeah, so he can't take that throw. So he quickly progresses back to this backside dig and waits for it to wrap around this flat defender and hits it over the middle for a nice gain.
Yeah, LSU ran this concept a lot, and it showed that he can, again, do exactly what Mark is showing here, that he can get from one side of the field to the other on time and with good anticipation. And the LSU ran a lot of the same concepts over and over and over again, but it just kind of, again, proves that sort of myth was just kind of showing you who was watching and who is not actually watching him play. He's not just a chuck it deep and run kind of guy. He can absolutely, read a defense.
Rance is one of the Super Daniel supporters, so I know he's in the chat, just going crazy excited over this.
Don't get him started.
Yeah. So that point Nick just made, that he's not just a chuck it deep guy and he likes to work through his progressions. This is a great play for that, because I showed at the start he loves to throw these slot fades. LSU loves this play, and they love to throw these slot fades, but sometimes they're just not there, and you have to progress off of them. And so we see here this corner is kind of anticipating, hey, I'm probably going to get a slot fade because that's what they run half the time. So he is way off, and he's sitting on top of that. And Daniels comes across here. He wants it, but this guy is bailing immediately. That is just dead at the snap of the ball. So instead of being like, okay, I'm going to force this down the field because I know I've got a good arm and I've got great accuracy down the field, it's okay, well, that read's dead, so I'm going to come off of it. I'm not just going to chuck it deep for the sake of it. I'm going to work to my backside, and you can see he's comes to his backside and he's got all this middle of the field other than the referee to work with, and he hits his receiver in the middle of the field, and then his receiver goes and makes a nice play for him after the catch. But again, coming from the backside angle, you can see he's working right off the snap. He wants that slot fade, quickly realizes that corner is really not letting him have that So he just comes back across the middle, hits his guy. Nice play, more progression stuff. So, and then more stuff where I kind of just wanted to show that he's not just some one read and run quarterback. And as we just saw, he's capable of progressing through stuff, but he's also really capable of understanding what the defense is doing and where they're weak and how they can attack it. So on this play, I've got the coverage structure drawn up. It's a cover 3 structure, but without the lines on the field, you'll see we've got 2 deep safeties. So it looks like it's 2 deep at the snap. But what actually happens is this safety bites up or buzzes up into here, and you got this safety rotating back, and you've got a cover 3 structure. And obviously against cover 3, the weakness is the seam. So when Daniel snaps the ball, he's checking this safety. He can see this safety is buzzing up into the curl flat. So the hook curl zone. You got the slot corner buzzing out to the flat, and that kind of is a pretty big indicator that actually this is probably cover 3. So he immediately thinks, I'm ripping this seam ball. As soon as this guy clears that slot corner and that corner's not attaching, he knows I can throw this seam route before this safety has any chance of getting there. So he rips it up the middle, and then his receiver goes and makes a nice play. But again, like what we talked about earlier with the talent, it's great to have the talent that goes and does this after the catch. But the actual read of the play was really good. So the process was good, and that's what you like to see. And another example here of him using information and understanding what the defense is doing. So this is a fairly basic thing. You get the tight end going in motion across the formation. You get, I think this is a safety or a slot corner following him across the field, and then he knows it's probably some form of man coverage. That's typically a man indicator. And then he's got his number 1 receiver on the backside here on a curl. So he knows if I've got man coverage, I can just go to my guy one-on-one. And again, this is where having the talent helps, because you've got your really good matchup that you want out here. But again, it's him using the pre-snap information from the motion, showing that there's more to him than just being a one read and throw quarterback. He checks that this safety is kind of buzzing down in a kind of robber kind of role with the other safety playing deep. So again, he's confirming I've got one-on-one on the outside. And we see the anticipation. Receiver hasn't made his break yet. He's sort of started to come away to begin his throwing motion, delivers that ball and hits his guy. And then...
So Mark, real quick, I've worked with you enough, so I know potentially we're going to see some negative clips coming up in a moment. But my question so far, though, is what's your comfort level so far about Jayden Daniels? It seems like you're pretty positive in regard to him as a processor, as someone that can throw from the pocket. Is that fair to say, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I'm with Nick in that he shows a fair amount of the time that he can do it. He's really capable of doing it. There are inconsistencies with it, and that's obviously something you would like to see less of. You'd like to see him be more consistent with reading from the pocket and trusting what he sees. I saw quite a lot of what Nick was talking about, where he kind of hesitates and he doesn't necessarily trust himself. And you'd like to see him just really trust himself and go, actually, no, I'm right with what I'm seeing there, and make the throw, because you can quite often see him hesitate and begin his throwing motion and then pull the ball back down, being like, actually, I'm not sure. And if he just went with it, he would probably complete the pass. So
yeah, I mean, some of his best plays are when he doesn't have a chance to hesitate. Like I don't know if Mark has it pulled up in this clip, but my favorite throw of his was against Ole Miss, where he had a free rusher right in his face and he had to rip a seam right on time. And again, it was like, he didn't have to hesitate. He didn't have a choice. He had to rip it, and he's usually right. So again, it's just, I don't know. It's probably not a confidence thing. The guy won the Heisman, but he can do it. He just needs, to trust himself more.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. So this is one more talking about the kind of ability to understand the different coverages and stuff that he'll see. And this is an interesting coverage. I believe it's some sort of inverted Tampa 2. And you've got the outside corner kind of right at the snap, sprints all the way back inside. So he's probably trying to play a deep half. And you get this slot corner trying to bail out into the flat underneath. And he reads this really well. A lot of guys would see the corner over the top and think, I can't hit this deep shot. But he sees this corner as he kind of opens up. you can see he opens up immediately and is bailing out. He's not trying to press this guy. He's not trying to stick with him. He is bailing to get out on top of this. And then this slot corner kind of fakes that he's pressing in the slot, but he's actually trying to bail out underneath it. And what Daniel sees is actually this corner, his leverage is all inside. He's clearly bailing deep into some sort of deep half. I can put this ball on this receiver on the outside here, and there's not really much this guy can do about it. So it's again understanding a coverage, and it's understanding that actually I've got leverage to make this throw. A lot of quarterbacks might see I'm trying to throw deep, I'm trying to throw this way over the top here, and this guy's still on top of the route, so I can't do that. But what Daniel shows here is that this guy's not really a threat. His back's turned and he's trying to get underneath it, but he's miles away. He's not a threat. This guy, again, his back's turned to receiver. He's trying to get into the middle. So he has no leverage to make a play on this. So he knows instead of putting this ball way out in front over here, he can put this ball on his receiver. And that's what he does. He puts the ball on his receiver. And you can see that he makes the catch with neither guy within a couple yards of him. So, and then again, we talked about that talent that they have. They're able to accentuate this and make those guys miss and turn that into a huge play. And that's fantastic. But the read is what was important. And again, you see a guy. And
it was from the far hash too. I mean, being able to catch that, like, I mean, again, it's tiniest little details to catch that little leverage of him being inside rather than outside leverage.
Absolutely.
Was exactly what he wants to do, and he rips it from the far hash. Some people might think that it's a little underthrown, but it's actually perfect. And again, from that college far hash is 10 times harder than an NFL far hash.
I was gonna say run it back. That's probably my favorite throw of the whole video clip so far. That was awesome because he basically sees the corner of the safety basically flipping his hips the wrong direction, exploits it, explosion play. It's awesome. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, because with the DB, if he plays outside leverage, that would show you kind of cover three, and then you can sort of loft it over the top. But with him playing inside, he knows he's got to hit that back shoulder.
It's awesome.
Again, he does that in a pretty tight pocket too.
It's really good.
It's all about the leverage. It's all about understanding. Actually, this is, and again, it's probably something they've studied throughout the week in film study. I think
this was the first. This was the first game of the season, right? So they probably studied it for an entire off season.
Exactly. So he probably knew that they do have a little tendency to try to play a sort of inverted Tampa 2 coverage, which is what I believe this is. So when he sees, again, he'll have understood going into this game when he sees that kind of guy bailing that there is a chance. But studying it on film throughout the week or the off season and actually executing it in the game is something else completely. And then again, he's seeing that this guy is. It's not necessarily. It's hugely on leverage, but again, it's not just. I see this guy's inside. I know he is sprinting and bailing out to try to get deep, because if he's just opened up his hips, but he's still staying tight to this guy, this is still a very, very tough throw to make. But it's because he sees that he's kind of angling inside and trying to get inside between the numbers and the hash marks to be a deep half defender that he knows that he's safe to throw this ball outside. So the ball placement and the understanding of the coverage is fantastic, and it's another play. It's a play that I really like because it dispels the idea that he's just this one read and go terrible pocket quarterback. But
to that point, Mark, there's a little debate going on in the chat. I don't know if you guys want to answer or address this. So Brandon, one of our friends from the show, he says he's being mislabeled as a mobile quarterback. He's a pocket passer. I'd rather escape for 50 than force a throw. He has under 20 interceptions for his college career. Is that a fair assessment, or do you think that's kind of somewhere in the middle, or what are your thoughts on that?
I'd say that's fine.
Okay.
For me, my kind of knock is that he doesn't sort of force throws, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I would kind of like him to force more throws, not be as conservative. But again, that's not a bad thing at all. That again is just my sort of thing with his anticipation. But yeah, no, he is going to be instantly one of the best running quarterbacks, but can also, like we've shown here, read a defense from left to right, right to left. No matter how you want to do it, he can absolutely do it.
So he has the tools. He's capable of doing it. He just basically has to speed up the process a little bit, in your opinion.
Absolutely. Yep.
Mark, similar thoughts, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Nick. I don't want to say he's this really polished pocket passer. He has some really good traits, and he shows a lot of glimpses of doing it. As we kind of talked about, we'd like to see it a little bit more consistently from him. And there is a little bit of a tendency for him at times to be like, I'm not 100% sure exactly what I'm seeing, or I don't quite like this look, so I'm going to trust my legs. But when you're a guy that can run as fast as he can and basically outrun anyone else, then you probably would be like, actually, that reads a little bit muddy. I'm just going to take this off and house it myself. So, but yeah, this next set is stuff that Doug was talking about earlier, where we want to attack over the middle of the field, because in the NFL you do need to be able to do that. And this is a nice full field dagger concept where you've got two guys both running clear outs. You've got the big dig route on the outside, and then you've got a shallow cross to occupy anyone underneath. There's a lot of different ways to run dagger. You can run the very basic version, you can run the trips version, and you can run have a little shallow guy underneath. They're putting it all in one go here. So this is really nice from LSU. It's putting all the eggs in one basket a little bit, but you can see the hole that it opens up, and you can see you get the underneath linebacker driving on this shallow. You get the safeties going deep from the two deep routes on the crosser, and this opens up a nice big gap in the middle of the field for that dig route. All Daniels really has to worry about is this linebacker, and this linebacker is driving the shallow, so he knows he can anticipate and hit this over the middle in this window, which he does really nicely, and finds his guy over the middle in that massive hole in the middle of the field, and let his receivers go to work. So that's one example of him attacking the middle of the field. There's two more in this Ole Miss game. We'll get to that clip that Nick talked about in a minute. This one came a little bit earlier in the game, and it's basically the same idea. You've got a guy running kind of a little bit of a drift route, but it's slightly a post route, a little bit deeper than a drift route, and you see he's kind of bending this route around this defender, and he's trying to work into this hole in the middle of the field. Daniels again shows some nice anticipation. He's reading it here. He's just about to begin the throw, and his receiver hasn't cleared the underneath coverage yet, but he hits it. I think I've got the end zone angle in on this one, which shows just how, here we go. So he's checking this safety rotation in the middle of the field, comes back to his right. You can't see the receiver, but he's just off the screen here. But you can see he's just about to begin his throwing motion, and you can obviously tell the receiver hasn't cleared this underneath guy yet, but he shows real good anticipation, knows that he's got the window here behind this referee, and delivers that throw. Again, receiver hasn't cleared it yet, but he's trusting him to.
It's a good throw. Puts
it in that window. Great throw over the middle. And the next one, exact same thing. And this is go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you. So, in regard to pro concepts, how is there a lot of transferable routes and concepts in regard to what LSU runs to what we see in the NFL? I was just kind of curious about how complex everything is.
Yeah, they definitely have a lot of stuff that transfers. The dagger stuff I was just talking about, the routes that we've seen, they all show up on Sunday. The concepts, they all show up. There's just, as Nick said, they kind of handpick their handful of things that they really like, and they run them over and over and over again.
Gotcha.
So in the NFL, he'll have a lot more diversity than the handful of plays that he run, but the plays they did run, they will transfer for sure.
Gotcha.
You see them all the time. So, and this is the one that Nick was talking about earlier, where again it's the same idea. You're looking for this outside receiver to hit in that hole, but we've got a little bit of what we would call a simulated pressure, where it's still only a 4-man rush, but you don't know where the 4 guys are coming from, and you get a bit of a free rusher at the middle here, and Daniels kind of has to speed things up and makes an amazing throw. And the end zone angle, once you see this receiver go nuts and turn this into a huge gain, he'll see the end zone angle. This is outstanding. You get the linebacker blitzing, and the running back kind of steps up, and you get someone coming through free here. I think the left guard misses this kind of pass off, and so this guy's coming through here. So this is a defensive end looping inside on the stunt, and he's coming through free. Daniels has a little bit of a concern about this linebacker being here, and he wants to throw kind of over the top of him to this outside receiver that we can't see yet. But he doesn't have any choice. As kind of Nick said, this guy is going to hit him pretty quick if he doesn't get the ball out. So he trusts it, and you can just now see at the edge of the screen here, this receiver is just breaking over the middle, and this linebacker is right in the throwing window that he'd want to throw it in. the defender is right in his face, and he delivers an absolute dime right over the middle and perfectly in stride, and lets his guy go and make a great play after the catch as well.
Yeah, that was my favorite throw of his entire season.
100%.
Yeah, it's, again, I kind of talked about how he sort of falls off a little bit. Not there. He took an edge rusher right to the face there and delivered an absolute C. Just trusting himself and, knowing what he sees in the defense and just ripping it.
I actually have a question from the chat as well. It might not be the best time because he's had an awesome throw right there. But my guy Arch right here put up a question. We talked about like potentially hesitating, potentially not throwing in rhythm. Arch basically asked, do you think it's a bad thing that he's hesitant still after 5 years of experience being 23 in the college football? How do you guys feel about that? Or just kind of this is kind of growing pains and college game? What are your thoughts on this?
I think you can make the case. I think you can make the case that is a bad thing, but we don't really know what he's thinking. I mean, we can only watch what we see on the film. So that's the type of thing that, like, when you're in a room with him and you're breaking down film with him, is questioning, why didn't you throw this, or why didn't you do that? What were you looking at here? And that's the sort of things where us as, Twitter evaluators are never going to have a chance to kind of ask him those questions.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of on you, basically. If you want to, there's arguments to be made for both sides. I think you can absolutely say that that's a problem if he's had 5 years of experience and he's not trusting himself. But you can also say that, again, maybe he's playing at LSU and he kind of knows that he doesn't have to be, on perfect time every single time, and his skill guys and offensive line can kind of bail him out at times. So that's kind of one of those things that you would like to sit down and talk to him about, basically.
Makes sense. Mark, same thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that is definitely a thing you'd want to talk to him about, and show him these plays and walk him through and say, hey, what are you seeing here? Why are you not letting this rip? And why are you hesitating? And he might have real good answers for each individual moment. And he might say, yeah, I kind of hesitated here because in this situation, we were expecting this look and we didn't actually quite get the look we were expecting. And if you go back to it on the 2 drives later, we showed the same play and I got the look I was expecting and I threw it in there. So there's usually an explanation behind why he's hesitating. And then that, as Nick said, that stuff we'll never get to hear, but it's certainly something you would bring up to him. But we'll probably never hear those conversations.
Yeah, I mean, it was something with CJ Stroud. Like, for me, I was a little lower on Stroud because, again, I thought the same sort of thing where he was, not constantly anticipating and as consistent with it. And then there's, you listen to clips of him talking up plays and diagramming them, and you're like, okay, yeah, no, there was a reason for all of that. And he's clearly one of the smartest guys ever when it comes to the quarterback position. So those are the type of things that you miss just watching the film and debating on Twitter. You don't get to sit there and listen to him talk a concept and coverages and all that sort of stuff.
Makes sense.
So I've got a load more stuff and we've not got a huge amount of time left, but I'll speed through this a little bit. So this was an example of, again, kind of dispelling this myth that he's just a one read and run quarterback. He's got a lot more to his game than that. I think we've already proved that, but there's actually quite a bit of quarterbacking, and this comes from the experience of being in college for 5 years. You see here we've got Auburn. They've got
I was hoping you picked these. Sorry to interrupt you, but I was hoping you picked these when you said you watched the Auburn game, because it felt like every single play they had both A-gaps mugged up and they were just constantly coming at him, and every single time it looked like he got the protection pretty much right every single time. So
that's awesome.
I was very happy that you had the Auburn game already done, because I know you'd have these.
Yeah. So this is kind of a cover zero look that they're showing here. From memory, they don't actually run cover zero here, but they're showing it, and it's third down, and that's a very realistic possibility that it could be a cover zero look, especially with how well they're showing it. You kind of got these heavy inside leverage guys, and there's no safety in the middle of the field, and everyone's up on the line of scrimmage. And so, as a young quarterback that hasn't played a lot, you might see this cover zero look and just snap the ball and try to get the ball out, or more likely you're looking to the sideline and going, what am I doing? Coach, help me out. And then the coach will call you an audible, and that'll change
clap and look to the sideline every single time.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's when I'm like, I'm out.
That's not what Jayden Daniels does. What he does here is he sits there in the pocket and he goes, okay, I've got what looks like cover zero. I'm going to adjust things. So what you'll see him do in a minute is he'll signal to his running back and his tight end, and he'll move them across, and you maybe could argue you could just bring the tight end here and the running back there rather than have them switch sides, but that's a small detail. The important part is that he gets these guys into a position where he has enough blockers in to protect himself. So you'll see he motions his tight end in and his running back, and then they flip things across, and then he's motioning to his receivers, changing the route completely. And so now what he's got is he's got 5 offensive linemen plus 2 blockers on the edge. He's audible to his favorite slot fade we've talked about a lot. You're going to run that
fade
all
with
the
a
time.
Backside dig is their entire playbook.
That's so funny.
and so that's of course what they're going to go to in a must-have situation. But again, you love the ability to understand, okay, I might be in trouble in protection here. I'm going to get my guys in to protect. As it turns out, I think if I recall correctly, they bail out of this. So yes, they do. They bail out of it. They just rush 4, and again, it's kind of a disguised 4. So he and then goes back into the quarterback stuff that we were talking about earlier, where he's reading the field and he reads this slot fade and he sees this guy's buzzing out and he immediately knows, okay, well, it's not cover 0 because this guy's going out. He sees this safety that was kind of over the top of this slot bailing out deep, and he's like, okay, well, I've not got the slot fade that I wanted. But he knows I've got a ton of guys in to protect. So I've got time to sit here and figure things out. So he stays outside here and he's like, can I hit this hitch outside of the slot fade? It's not quite there. The slot fade's not there. I'll come back across to the middle of the field and I'll find my guy on a dig, on the backside dig, and hit him in stride and let him go and make that first down and then some. And again, this is just the end zone angle. You see him kind of instructing everyone and making the calls and not sure exactly what blitz is going to come and if one's going to come, but he's got himself protected in case they do have one coming. And turns out they don't. So he takes his time in the pocket and he checks his slot fade and it's not there. And it's like, okay, well, I'll come to this backside dig. And, this referee's still acting as another defender, but he's not worried about that. He's fitting it in this window and throws it right over his head, actually, and makes a nice throw. And this was the exact same thing later on in the game, and the receiver had gone in motion to this side of the field, and he saw a little coverage rotation with that motion, the receiver in motion, and so again he does the same thing. He tells his back and his tight end, actually, you guys are staying in, you're chipping and you're protecting, and we're changing the play. We're going to get to that exact same thing we just saw a minute ago, where we got the little slot fade on the outside here and the backside dig, and this time they kind of bail out of the cover 0 look a little bit earlier. So they got that safety in the middle of the field, but he's still not sure where the blitz might be coming from, wants to keep himself protected. So he does. Again, slot fade, backside dig, favorite thing that they love to do. And when they get out here, he sees this safety bailing out deep and he knows that slot fade's probably dead, but also this middle of the field is now wide open. He's just got to trust this guy to beat that corner. He comes back across the middle of the field. His guy does beat that corner, and they go get a touchdown out of it. So you love the ability for him to check the protection, understand, like, you never fully know 100% that a big blitz is coming or not, but you can get indicators that there might be a blitz coming and I might not be quite protected as I should be. And that's not something you see a lot of college quarterbacks doing on their own. And it's really impressive to see him have that mental capability to be like, okay, I need to make sure I'm protected here. I'm going to change the play at the line of scrimmage myself. You never saw him looking over to the sideline being like, what am I doing here? It was all by him. So, yeah, right. Okay. So next, I want to talk about the run stuff, because we talked about how good he is as a runner, but we haven't talked about what he can add to a running game. And it can add a hell of a lot. I'm just going to run this on because I've got so many plays to get through and we're basically done out of time. But
he almost ran for 300 yards against Florida. So
yeah, so this is just a basic read option, and they're back at their own 15. And this safety is biting heavy on the run. He gets a block on the outside. All he needs is this safety to take a slightly poor angle, and he is off to the races. And
that's the RG3 Vikings run.
Yeah, it's exactly right.
Yeah,
it's. I know people are not going to like that comparison as much, but I think there's a lot of similarities there. So yeah, it's a little weird.
Morris, boom, gone. Exactly right.
Yeah. So all you need is that one bad angle, and this guy is far good enough athlete to outrun the rest of the defense, and they don't get him. So that can add a lot to the run game. Obviously, Washington fans will know just how much a mobile quarterback can add to the run game. LSU also did a load of quarterback draws. I believe this is like a second and super long. Like this is the original 1st and 10 marker. That's the first down marker. So he's way backed up, and they just call a quarterback. It's kind of a quarterback draw with a read that he could throw this, but the offensive line are blocking for run, and he just kind of runs and he doesn't stop running for quite a while. That's just the electric element to the game that he brings. Like you can call these quarterback draws and you're backed up on 2nd and 15, and he turns it into a 60 or 70 yard play. It's ludicrous. It really is. And they do
it elevates his floor. I mean,
absolutely.
I think that's why you can see him being one of the highest floor guys, and the fact that there is still some raw stuff and he needs to develop, but that run game just instantly elevates him into an automatic threat the second he steps on the field.
Yeah. And so that can add so much to an offense. And these are more just examples of them running that quarterback draw stuff, and you get him in the open field, and it's very, very hard to catch him and stop him and bring him down. So it's a huge threat. I'm just going to skip through that one. This one I wanted to highlight because it's in the red zone. He is a cheat code in the red zone because of his ability to run. And what you'll see here is they're trying to play a numbers game, right? They've got 3 guys out here, the tight ends here, so it's kind of 4 strong. You got 1 guy isolated on the backside. Alabama are kind of trying to put Alabama in a conflict. It's like, do we cover this whatever's happening out here, or do we try to play for the run in the box? And in the end, they're like, we're not 100% sure, but we're going to try to commit to the run in the box. So they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up front here, 6 here, 7 here. So they've got 7 guys in the box against 5 offensive linemen and a tight end. So that is enough numbers in the box for them to cover every single gap and account for the quarterback. Even so, they run quarterback draw, and Jayden Daniels makes the guy miss and turns it into a touchdown. And you'll see it here. Again, you've got enough guys here to cover every gap, outside gap, inside. You got the nose tackle kind of playing either way with the linebacker filling this way. He's probably filling that side. You got outside gap and outside gap. So you've got enough players in the box to cover every gap. And Daniels just makes this linebacker miss and turns it into a touchdown. So even when you have the numbers right, he makes you wrong. And that scrambling ability, that running ability is a huge asset for when plays break down, as we kind of know with every other quarterback that we've talked about with Caleb Williams and Drake May. When plays break down, they're able to run around and extend things. He's not going to run around and extend things so much. He's going to kind of take off running, but he's such a threat when he takes off running that he turns, like, that could have well easily have been a sack, and he turns it into this ludicrous 50-yard play, and it's like, it's like, what's going on here? And it allows you to kind of add an extra element to your offense, because look, we're going to motion the running back out to empty. We're going to flood this side of the field. We're going to have everyone coming over this side of the field. And he wants to be a passer first. Like, he's reading out these concepts. He's got kind of everyone covered across the board here. He wants to come back to his crossers. They're kind of covered. We can't really go to either one of those. But what we do have is suddenly no defenders on this side of the field. So if I just take off running, everyone's back's turned. I'm just free to run. And he takes off running, and that field is wide open for him, and he's able to, again, create a huge play with his legs. So we'll skip this one.
So, Mark, you're clearly blushing right now. There's a lot of love in the air. I guess you're a fan of Jayden Daniels. That's what I can gather from this so far. What are your thoughts?
I do have concerns with him, and I want to highlight those real quick. So I want to get to those, but the running ability, like, people see it as a negative, and it's like, you've got to be able to make throws from the pocket, and that's true, but it can be a huge positive as well. It can bail a guy out, and it can add a lot to an offense. So I wanted to highlight that, like we talked about, he's a really good runner. I wanted to just make sure we showed that he is a very, very good runner. But this is one of those things where, as Nick kind of showed earlier, like, you'd like to see him make a throw here. Like, you've got this kind of double post concept. You got the safety is kind of speed turning to get back inside to stay on top of this. So you've got this outside receiver with a step on this outside corner. You'd like to see him just hit this ball down the field because he's capable of doing it. He doesn't. He kind of hesitates and he looks over the middle. He doesn't like it, and then he ends up scrambling. And again, that's kind of just something you're going to have to live with him because he is such an electric runner. He's going to miss some things because he has the ability to make the plays himself. And again, here, you can anticipate this one breaking over the middle. You've got this guy with horrible leverage with his hips turned almost backwards, and you've got a receiver breaking open. You got the second receiver breaking open. You got the running back in space in the flat with this linebacker not close by. He could make any one of these throws. He doesn't. And he sits there and he kind of hesitates and then he has to take off in the pocket. And of course, when he takes off running, he goes and makes a huge, stupid play. So it's you have to be willing to live with the fact that he is going to miss some stuff and he's exposed enough to make up for it. But the downside of it, the real red flag for me is he exposes himself to far too many hits.
Oh, I love this play.
The stuff that he exposes himself to is far worse than anything RG3 ever did in Washington. And then this one is the best one to highlight it. He could quite easily hit this slant route here, and he probably should just hit this slant route here. For whatever reason, doesn't trust it. Maybe he thinks this safety's biting up. He doesn't like it. I think that's NFL open if he throws that inside and trusts this guy to run onto it. He doesn't, for whatever reason. Sometimes quarterbacks don't like the look. So he decides to take off running. And when he decides to take off running, at this moment in time, you want your quarterback, when you see unblocked defenders, you want your quarterback just to get down. Yeah. I've never, ever seen anyone do this. He tries to hurdle.
This is infamous. Yeah,
and this angle of it is just crazy. I've never seen anyone try to hurdle inside between tackles, and he just gets blown up. And that was a huge hit in college. In the NFL, that linebacker is probably a lot bigger, a lot stronger, and hitting him a lot more. And this is another one. I think that hit kind of just happened at the wrong angle and made it look worse than it was, but it's still a big hit. And again, in the NFL, like I'm thinking Sean Taylor against that punter in the Pro Bowl right now, hitting him like that. Like that's.
This is the $1 million question for me. I feel like Jayden Daniels is dynamic and it's explosive. He can turn up another level, but like, what happens when he's not the best player on the field? When he's not the fastest, quickest person? Are you guys concerned about that? Like, what's your level of concern? Like, he's zipping through, these like Division I athletes, but a lot of these people aren't going to go to the pros. Like, are you worried about that at the next level, or do you think he can figure it out?
My concern isn't so much that he won't run by a lot of guys. Like, he's still going to be athletic enough to run by a defensive lineman or a linebacker for the most part. Mm-hmm. My concern is that he tries what he does here. Instead of just giving up and being like, okay, I've got two defenders really close by, I'll just slide here. He tries to cut back up the field and tries to fight for every single yard. And if that is a 260-pound or 240-pound running back, yeah, sure, go for it. Run over those guys all day long. But you're my quarterback, my franchise quarterback. I do not want you turning back up the field trying to make an extra 3 yards on a run that I would much rather you just protect yourself. And again, it's not the biggest hit. In the NFL, that's going to be a bigger hit. And his film is just littered with these plays where, again, he takes off running here. He could quite easily bail out here and get to the sideline or give himself up. But instead of doing that, he cuts back up the field trying to beat these guys and pick up these extra yards that, like, just bail out, give yourself up. No, tries to cut back inside. He's got, not only does he have to try to beat this guy, he's got this guy ready to land a hit. And he, again, it's not necessarily the biggest hit at that moment in time, but in the NFL, you have to expect that these hits are going to be bigger and they're going to take a much more of a toll on his body. So that's the concern for me. That's the biggest concern, that can you coach that out of him, and the desire to make every single play and fight for every single yard. Obviously, you love that desire, that mentality, but if the guy can't protect himself, he's going to get blown up massively. And we saw what happened with RG3 when he took that knee injury. Like, he wasn't the same player. He wasn't the same dynamic runner afterwards, and that really halted his career. And there's obviously a lot of other stuff going on with RG3 and Shanahan and stuff. But,
absolutely.
He wasn't the same dynamic runner afterwards, and so you have to be concerned about that. And then I don't know how much you can coach that out of a guy, because obviously you don't want the guy to be, I don't want you to be competitive. Like you want your quarterback to be the most competitive guy, but you want him to be sensible about it, and you don't want him to be cutting up the field to try to fight for 2 more yards when he's already picked up 30 yards on an insane scramble, So
it's a double-edged sword. Like you don't want to coach it out of him, but you also, again, and that just takes time and experience. But I mean, it's just tough. He's not built like Josh Allen. He can't really take those hits consistently.
He's definitely very appealing, arguably the most high upside in the entire draft. And I feel like he's just a quick, mobile quarterback that can do whatever. So I'm really excited about him. Do you guys have a couple minutes for a couple questions before we wrap it up? Is that okay?
Cool with me.
Cool. Yep. Let's throw it up there real quick. So Connor had a question. He came a little bit late, and we kind of touched on it a little bit, but this is a good summary of our video. He said, just joined, so not sure if this has been touched on already, but how are his throwing mechanics? It seems like he controls the ball pretty well. I'll throw that to the group, whoever wants to jump on it. Nick or Mark?
I don't think there's any major concerns there. I mean, it's not perfectly flawless like Caleb Williams, but I think it's more than adequate. There's no big, massive concerns there at all for me. Mm-hmm.
His feet are a little bit happy and panicky. I'd like to see his feet a little bit more calm in the pocket, but that's not necessarily a thing that you don't see in a lot of quarterbacks. Like a lot of young quarterbacks are.
I mean, I talked about the little thing he does where he kind of falls off a little bit, but that's really kind of it. That's just kind of being nitpicky at this point.
Gotcha. Yeah. I'll throw it over to Michael on our next question, which is, this is the $1 million question we keep talking about every single week. We don't have to commit right now because we still have 2 more months until the actual draft. But I guess the first easy question I'll throw out there to both of you guys is: Jayden Daniels worthy of a 2nd overall selection in the NFL draft? Is that a safe yes?
Yeah.
Okay, and then that's step 1. And then I'll go to Mark, because we kind of got our feedback from Nick already, but Nick, you can jump on it as well. Mark, how do you rank them? How do you feel so far in regard to the quarterbacks? Do you like Jayden Daniels over May or over Williams? How you feeling about everything?
I'm a little different from Nick. Nick, to recap what Nick said earlier, he had Caleb Williams 1 and Drake May very close 2, and then a little bit of a gap, and Jayden 3. I've got Caleb Williams as a kind of far and away 1, and then I've got Drake May and Jayden Daniels kind of almost interchangeable as 2 and 3. I think I will probably go back and forth on both of them. Basically, who I've watched more recently is going to be the guy that I have second.
Yeah, recency bias for sure. Yeah.
So I can see the real positives of both May and Daniels. I think what I kind of came back to the ultimate, the test for me is what is the biggest red flag of Drake May for me is the misses and the inconsistencies with ball placement and accuracy, and missing things underneath that he's really capable of making. Whereas the red flag for me with Daniels is he's going to get himself killed by trying to cut up the field and getting mauled by a 250-pound linebacker. So if both those red flags turn out to be true, with Drake May, you've got a quarterback that is capable of still doing really good things, but occasionally he's going to be really frustrating. With Jayden Daniels, you've got a guy that's going to have a 2-year career before he is injured and out of the NFL. So that probably gives the edge to Drake May for me. If you didn't have to worry about either of their concerns, I think they both be very, very good, and it'd be really hard to separate them. But I guess right now I'd give Drake May the edge, but ask me tomorrow, I could very well give Jayden Daniels the edge.
Yeah, I mean, Washington is in such a great spot. You have a chance. We all kind of assume Caleb Williams is going to go 1. If he somehow doesn't, you hit a home run and you draft Caleb Williams 2, and you never think twice about it. But at 2, you've got Drake May and Jayden Daniels. Both of them have high-end traits, and like Mark said, they both have their own red flags. And for me, I just think one of them is a little more sticky than the other in terms of, Jayden Daniels taking sacks, taking hits, unnecessary stuff like that. But again, both of them at 2 would be home runs. And I think both of them can turn into be franchise quarterbacks, and it really is just what you prefer at that point. But I think trying to argue with either of them, saying one was so much worse than the other one is just really not worth it. I mean, I think if either of them are the pick at 2, I think you should be ecstatic and ready to go.
Gotcha. This is kind of a complex question. I don't know if you guys feel comfortable answering this. It's clear Jayden Daniels is the better runner of the two. Who would you say is the better passer of the two? Is there a clear cut? Is May a better passer than Jayden Daniels, or how do you feel about that?
There's a lot that goes into being the better passer.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, if you want to talk about accuracy, yeah, Daniels is better accuracy. If you want to, in my mind, talk about anticipation, I think May is better. But
that's true.
So again, it levels.
May more consistently is able to work through things, and like we talked about with Jayden Daniels, where you see the examples that he's able to work through progressions and find the correct read, and there's definitely, you can see that he could keep progressing and become really good at that. Mm-hmm. May is already really good at that, and so he's more consistent at being able to go through his reads correctly and find the right way, right receiver to put the ball on. The issue is that he just doesn't always put the ball in the right spot. Whereas Jayden Daniels is a little bit more consistently, like when he makes the decision to make the throw, the ball's more consistently accurate than Drake May, in my opinion, at least.
Gotcha. Nick, some more thoughts?
Yeah, and I mean, I also think that Drake May is I know we say it all the time for white quarterback, sneaky athlete, but he is a very, he's a very good athlete. Yeah. And he can make a lot of plays with his legs. But yeah, he's not Jayden Daniels with his leg, but he can still make a lot of plays. But it just comes down to what you prefer in terms of what you want as a passer and what your concerns are and what you think you can fix and what you think you can't fix. And that's going to be really different for anyone.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for that. You guys did an awesome job breaking down the film. I learned a lot. You guys are very patient answering questions from the chat. Thank you for all of you guys in the chat asking questions that are fantastic. I think next week we'll be looking at Caleb Williams, right? It's kind of the game plan right now. Tentatively, we could change. That's kind of our plan right now. For those of you that are watching, throw us some ideas. We have free agency coming up. We have some other college prospects you might be interested in. We definitely will look into that. Nick, Mark, anything else before we wrap it all up?
Oh, good for me.
I got nothing.
Sounds good. See you guys next week. See you guys next Tuesday. Bye, guys. Peace.